Hi, friends. Welcome back. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about, drum roll please, your greatness. And by greatness, I'm talking about the potential that resides inside of each and every human being. So let me go back to the beginning on this. I'm going to ask you to extend me a little bit of grace because some of these concepts may be something that you haven't really considered before or you're not familiar with. And some people, it's just going to be like old hat, old news. They're already rocking with it. It's not a big deal. But if you haven't, I'm going to ask you to come to this particular podcast with an open mind because I'm going to go a little bit deeper than I normally go. And just keep your heart and mind open. Allow it to at least kind of settle in your spirit a little bit. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, then it's not for you. So here we go. We come here into these physical bodies from the beyond, whatever you call the beyond, heaven, the universe. Just know that there is something much, much larger going on here. And so we tend to think that these physical bodies are it. That this is life right here, what you can see. You can see your arms, you can hear your voice, you can hear my voice. We tend to think that that is what life is, but that is only a portion of life. Life is much, much bigger than that. And so let me take you all the way back to the beginning when you were first born, when you made the harrowing journey through your mother's birth canal and you kind of hit the material world. But stop for a second and think about where you came from. Where were you before you were formed in your mother's womb? Where were you before you came through the birth canal? And so that is the piece of life that many of us just never stop to consider. Where were you before you became who you are? What was it like there? Do you see where I'm getting at? There is something much, much bigger going on here, right? The beyond is a beyond. If you are from the Christian discipline, you may call that heaven. Other religions may call it something else. But whatever that is, just know that that is a part of who you are. That is a part of your existence. And a lot of people never stop to consider that. So we've established that this blood, bone, flesh being that you know is yourself is only a part of you. You have a soul, a spirit, whatever you call that. Some larger part of you came from someplace else. It is connected to something much, much larger than what you know to be you. And so as you came here from that realm, from that beyond place, we'll call it, you were kind of equipped with a repository or a bucket almost of certain skills, certain inclinations, certain curiosities, certain characteristics about yourself, certain things that you could accomplish in this lifetime. In other words, you came here with a bucket that you were supposed to kind of dig down into and carve out a life of intention. And that is something that we simply haven't been doing. We have been kind of stumbling through the darkness and forgetting that we come here as pure potential. It doesn't mean that we don't have limitations. It doesn't mean that sometimes people are born with certain handicaps or certain limitations to their IQ. All that stuff is real, but none of that stuff has to stop you from anything. None of that stuff has to stop you from reaching your potential and fulfilling the potential that was given to you from the other side when you decided to come here. There is nothing that will stop you from completing your mission of life, and we've completely gotten that wrong. We have allowed certain experiences, things that are happening to us, to give us this view of the world that we have no control and we have no power. And that just simply isn't true. In a perfect world, our parents would have kind of told us or trained us, when you encounter difficulty on your journey, don't let it stop you. Don't let it drag you down into the dumps. Don't let it make you give up or feel like life is over. Just step back, shake it off, reassess, and figure out what you have to do to complete your life's mission. Dig back into your bag. Go back into your repository and access your tools and try to figure out what you need to get beyond the obstacle. I almost say it's kind of like playing a video game. When I was young, we had this game called Donkey Kong, and that little man was kind of running, and all these obstacles were coming into his way and being presented on his path, and he was just kind of jumping over them and navigating around them. That's really what life was intended to look like. But we have completely forgotten that. And so when we run up against something negative, we just kind of spiral out of control, and we forget that we are this larger being, that we have access to way more power than what we understand. And so I want to remind you today that you are great. You've just simply forgotten, and you just need to step back and regroup and remind yourself of who you are, and remind yourself that your repository is full potential, pure potential. And there are things in this life that you are capable of that you're not even trying to accomplish. So I hope that inspires you today. I'm reminded as I'm speaking that we all are going to experience negative things. Like when we live in this world, this world is literally a creative process, and we are a part of that creative process. And it was intended for us to come here and kind of mold our clay and carve out a life that was satisfying to us. And as we did that, we added to this larger notion of creation. But we kind of have really just fallen off track. There's negative things here. In a creative situation, certain things have to exist for there to be creation. And in this environment, we have to have contrast. Like, you and I can't know what it means to be happy if we never know what sadness is. And so you're always going to have the opposite here. The question becomes, how much power do you give that over your circumstances, right? So contrast is a given. You can't have light without dark. You can't have up without down. That's a given here in this world that we live in. The question becomes, do you surrender all of your power to the contrast? Or do you understand that contrast is just going to be a part of life? It is part of the creative environment that we're in. And it really kind of has no more power over me than what I give it. You can choose to be happy. You can't know happiness without knowing what it means to be sad, but you don't have to give power to being sad all the time. You don't have to let that be your dominant experience. And that was what it was supposed to look like, that we were choosing from the contrast, that we were deciding which way we wanted to go and who we were supposed to become. I'm from the Christian discipline. All religions have some sort of savior or being, whether it's Hare Krishna or whether it's Shiva and some of those other gods in the Hindu tradition, whether it's Buddha. They always had this notion that the people got off track and someone had to come and remind them of who they are. So for us in the Christian discipline, it's going to be Jesus. Whatever discipline, I'm sure there's many, many other spiritual mystic beings out there that are in those particular texts that came to remind the people that you've completely gotten off track. And so I want you to think about that in terms of, even right now, even with your religious practice, you may have forgotten that you have gotten completely off track. Like for me, the discipline that I know is Christianity. we talk about Jesus and we talk about him being the Son of God and all of that and salvation. But the concept that he originally came to tell us was that you have this power within you and that you are capable of great things, that you should be emulating who I am, and I am both God and man, right? So remember, I was talking about when you come through the birth canal, that there is this notion of the beyond that is still a part of you. That is what Jesus was coming to tell us, that you have power. You are both God and man. You can move in spirit. You can triumph over the serpent, that you don't have to let the contrast ruin your life, that you are supposed to be understanding who you are as this larger, perfect, and powerful being, and that you were supposed to be using the creative process, including the contrast, to carve out a life that was satisfying for you here. And as you carve out a life that is satisfying for you, you add to all of creation. So let me be your reminder today. Go back and reclaim your greatness. Figure out what was in that repository when you first came here. Figure out what your gifts are, what your skills are, what your contribution can be. Understand that you don't have to be subservient to contrast and negative events, that you do have power over that. That you just need to step back when you get the blow and reassess and regroup. Remind yourself of your greatness. Remind yourself that you're both God and man. Remind yourself that you move, that you walk, that you have access to power every single moment of every single day. And figure out how to make your life experience better. And figure out how to uncover or figure out how to reclaim the greatness that resides within you.